Got an email from Square Enix this morning. Not a personalised email, just a generic mailer email, reminding me that there is a new trailer out for Final Fantasy XVI. And I say new, despite the fact that it's been out probably a week or so now. But I've had a bit of a busy half-term week. I've been doing some things that I can't talk about because I had to sign an NDA for it. So I'm finally getting around to watching the Ambition trailer for Final Fantasy XVI. I don't know whether I need closed captions on. I'm going to put them on, actually, because the last couple of Final Fantasy XIV trailers that I've watched, there have been instances where I couldn't actually quite understand what was being said because the audio balancing was a little bit weird, and that could just be my sound setup, or it could have been the trailer. I don't know. Let's watch this and see what it's like. Hopefully this is going to be loud enough. Yep, that's loud enough.
It has been 1,500 years since the fall of
This is a very Final Fantasy XII style opening, but with a bit of 11.
Thea has been slowly dying ever since.
This is our protagonist, isn't it? I know so little about the game. I've been deliberately not reading up on things. Creative Business Unit 3.
Now, but we're in the middle of the Deadlands.
The blight sucked this place dry. Meaning no trees.
The
no
blights.
birds, and no magic.
They're all northern.
Darkness spreads as day gives way to twilight.
A little bit of
Mother's
the
flame
theme
now
there in the
all
background.
but a flicker.
We cannot live without the blessing of the crystals.
Ooh.
And the
Ooh.
crystals work their magic through us. You have been blessed, Joshua.
But who shall claim their fading light? The Grand Duchy of Rosaria.
Rosaria,
bastion
you
of
say?
tradition.
This sounds
At the
familiar.
very least, we must secure Drake's breath.
That's 12
The
again.
Holy Empire of San Brec,
That's not.
where ambition is divine.
The Imperial banner shall fly over every city in Storm.
Storm.
All shall bow before their emperor.
The Dalmekian Republic, whose fortunes shift with the
Dalmekia?
desert sands.
And what of
Not
our
Dalmasca.
wise rulers, goaded into war without any thought as to what chaos it might reap.
The Iron Kingdom, forged in faith.
Getting a
and
very
fear.
kind of Final Fantasy 12 war of...
I merely cleansed them of their corruption.
Or the Kingdom of Waloed,
Waloed?
indomitable in its isolation.
That's a cool...
The dark swallows more of the realm with each passing day. And as the fringes fade, the people flock to the mother crystals.
kind of for
From a
proper
single
FF plots.
spark, will the land ignite? In the year 860, the Imperial army will march upon
Whoa.
Rosaria. And from the slaughter shall a new shadow rise.
Fan Daniel, is that you?
To fall
Ifrits.
upon the dominants, painting their destinies black as night.
Our ability to summon beasts of great might should command respect, but instead has left us outcasts.
Huh.
And so I became their puppet. What makes them think they have the right to use us? To leave us to die when our bodies are spent?
I'll crush him! Flame!
So the icons consume Garuda, Shiva, Ramu, Titan. That's a really cool concept, though. Gambit counter. Large. This is very dramatic. Such devastation.
Shall bow to me.
Very well. Come then. Show us the strength of your will.
Rise, ye crownless kings.
Rise, ye
A reckoning
tarnished.
is upon you. A war of the icons.
Well, summer 2023. Next year. Yeah. There was a lot going on in that, wasn't there? Very little in the way of actual gameplay, though we did have a short snippet of some of the kind of one-on-one duels combat. As I said, I've not been keeping up on this at all, so I have no idea if most of the game is like that or whether there's going to be party-based gameplay, a world to explore. I just don't know. All I have done is watched the trailers. And this is what, the second trailer? Third trailer. This is the story trailer, isn't it? We've seen a couple of much earlier ones, which must be 6 to 12 months ago now, probably something like that. I know Yoshi P was saying that he didn't want to release any more trailers until they got something really cool to show. They have something really cool to show. In terms of storytelling and theme, because obviously that is my general jam as a writer and English teacher, there was a lot going on here, and the problem with trailers is, of course, the fact that they have everything cut up and segmented in a way that isn't necessarily going to be indicative of the final story. But for what we can glean is that Valisthea, I assume, is the kind of either the continent or the planet. And again, this information, as often happens in my reaction videos, same as when I do my Final Fantasy XIV ones, the information may very well be out there already. Many people watching this might say, oh yeah, Valisthea's this. Why do you not know that? Because I haven't done any reading on it deliberately. I don't want to know too much before I play the game. As far as I'm aware, this is our main guy. And don't we play as like a young version of him and an older version of him, or something along those lines? Very kind of Final Fantasy XI-esque colour scheme for the Sandorian colour scheme for the uniforms. You know, the greys. But it's very practical. Texture work looks good. Animation is of a quality that I really wish we could get in Final Fantasy XIV. But obviously, budgets and motion capture. It's going to be fully voiced, I imagine. I'm guessing we've got some kind of party thing going on here. This looks like the kind of roguish chap. This looks like the kind of pack mule comedy relief, but actually quite competent. Is he a spellcaster or is he a cook? I couldn't tell because this was over. The Blight is their first idea that something is destroying the land of Valisthea. And I wonder if it is... The fact that it says there's no magic leads me to believe that it's something that's kind of the opposite of the Mother Crystals, almost like... I mean, Final Fantasy loves its big world-sweeping plagues. You've got the one that's currently in Harvestella, which is not... Okay, it's not technically a Final Fantasy game, but it may as well be, with the Quietus thing that's the Season of Death. We've had the... what was it in Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, which I never actually played, but the areas outside the town were overrun with blighty-type thing. But it's clearly something that is... It's killing life and magic, which I think is the important bit. The magic nature of it is to spin. Doggo! Yeah, we got that little illustration there. We get a crystal tower of sorts. ties darkness and twilight, obviously very thematic elements in Final Fantasy, where you tend to have your earth, wind, fire, water, light and dark, as well as, things like ice thrown into the mix, but ice tends to be mixed in with water, obviously. Very nicely framed shot there, leading us to this. I mean, it reminds me, first of all, of the Crystal Tower for obvious reasons, but also that the kind of jutting spars make it almost look a little bit kind of Fortress of Solitude-esque. But all the land around it is craggy and spiky and bereft of life. I like the little book turning thing. The mother's flame now all but a flicker. Is this the mother's? I assume this is the mother crystal. Which I guess is what this is illustrating, maybe. But that's a massive chunk of crystal in the background, and this entire fort, city, town, seems to have been built up around it. I mean, that reminds me of lots of things. It reminds me a bit of Olympics, kind of hanging on when everything around it is completely bereft of, again, kind of colour and life. It also reminds me a little bit of the effect of Titan in Final Fantasy XV, when you get that kind of concentric ring. It's not concentric ring, that spiral of rock spars that he creates. But it looks like a kind of volcanic pool with this kind of giant. It's not a crater really. It's a raised kind of volcanic pool. It'd be none too surprising if this was actually on the back of a creature that rose out of this surrounding earth, like a giant adamantoise or something. But yeah, I mean, just look at the size of that compared to this city, which again's got a giant crystal spire. I mean, in terms of scale, they are absolutely knocking it out the park. I mean, there's another kind of fortressy, castle-y thing there as well. I mean, there's no hiding that. This is like, this is Sargeras' sword sticking out of Azeroth. This is absolutely huge, and it does make me think. How would that affect stuff going on around it? What kind of influence would such a massive chunk of crystal, of aetheryte, have? We cannot live without the blessing of the crystals. It makes me think that it is only because of these giant crystals sticking out of the planet/continent that life can flourish at all, and the balance is shifting back towards the concept of death. And maybe the icons are going to be summoned to as kind of a last-ditch effort. I don't know. It's cool, though. We've got a little bit of an explanation of the magic system. The crystals work their magic through us. Not we do it, the crystals do it. So the implication is that we become pawns/puppets to the crystal's will, as opposed to we work magic using the crystal's power. But yeah, they see it as a blessing. So this is clearly after he has incarnated Phoenix. But whether they see it that way is another matter entirely. A little bit of the map of the continents here. Who shall claim their fading light? So the crystals are fading. Yeah, so Rosaria was the kingdom. Was it the kingdom that El Cid was from in FF12? That was Rosaria, wasn't it? I think. It's been a while since I've played 12. But that was not a bastion of tradition. That was kind of fashion forward thinking. So Rosaria is our kind of almost medieval, almost Renaissance kind of medieval fantasy castle. Got a nice big stone throne. This is king slash lord slash the guy that was sat at the table explaining things to Joshua. It's got proper knights and stuff. Could have polished that up a bit. We must secure Drake's Breath. Is that the name of a place or the name of a thing that we need to go and find? Now this, again, in terms of getting across the concept of the scale here, you know, we've got this. This is the kind of holy place where everything is church related. Some of these buildings, especially those there, look a little bit kind of... Mind you, we're not supposed to be looking at those. We're supposed to be focusing on this giant cathedral-line structure. This has got your very kind of typical Baroque, Gothic cathedral look to it. And it's fantasy as well. So it's got that weird, unbalanced... Who would build a building like this? Would gravity even allow it? But obviously it's been built so that it reflects the shape of the crystal in the background. This giant kind of icy peak. It wouldn't surprise me if Shiva was part and parcel of this. Some kind of divine, crystalline, icy light. You know, you've got to have a religious place. And again, we've got some kind of clergy-esque and some very kind of typical Renaissance style artwork in the background. Obviously, that's very nicely done. Texture work has been nice throughout. It's very, very shiny. Nice flowers. But very regal and very kind of wealthy. Every City in Storm was an interesting one. It's like, that the name of the place? It's nice to see that they've got good hair texture here. Final Fantasy XIV, cough, cough, get it sorted, cough, cough. So the Emperor of this place. Damajian, not Damascus, but similar vibe. You know, Desert Kingdom. Proper ancient Middle Eastern style minarets and spires, very kind of that area of the world, our world, inspired. You know, having distinctive biomes is important in a Final Fantasy game because it's all likely to be tied to the summons, to the icons. And, you know, you're gonna get, probably, I assume, Titan in a kind of rocky, deserty place. You're gonna get Ifrit in near some kind of fiery locations, Shiva Ice Mountains, yada yada yada. I'm hoping, in a way, actually, that I'm wrong there, that it breaks away from that kind of almost cliche way of doing thing. But yeah, fortune shifting with the desert sands, that is not an uncommon trope in literature. This guy is a big brutey character, but he's the brute with brains by the sound of it. The Iron Kingdom, see, this is where you'd expect Ifrit to raise his magmatic head, a giant chunk of dark red volcanic crystal. Iron Kingdom makes me think that they are industrious, that they are warmongers, that they are at the forefront of armor and weapons and technology because volcanoes and steel, etc., etc. Forged in faith and fear, so they've got an oppressive regime, maybe. I don't think it's insignificant that we've got black and red as the colours there. Not only is red obviously symbolic of the fire from the volcano, but blood and death and darkness and, you know, real world kind of 1940s regimes, black and red. You know, if you want to use colours to set a tone and mood and straight, you know, get across the ideas straight away in terms of connotation, you can't really go wrong with black and red and faith and fear. Souls were sullied with the stain of ether. So ether is viewed here, at least, as a curse, as a sin. Again, this the kind of religious, almost cult-like theocracy, faith and fear, rulership through the use of religion as a tool. Again, the crystals are very nicely done. This bit here is interesting. It almost looks like it's being held in place, or again, maybe shooting off sparks of some kind of magic. But yeah, ether is corrupting. And this is obviously where Ramu or Rama, depending on how you want to pronounce it, indomitable in its isolation. So the Thunder Kingdom, or it could be darkness, you know, because that's a very dark purple. Normally in Final Fantasy games we associate purple with thunder, and we did see thunder, but it could be that they get a couple of different icons. Although, isn't the idea that there's only one of each type, so one per crystal, which is why having both Phoenix and Ifrit is an issue? I vaguely recall that being a thing. Indomitable in its isolation. And I'm wondering if this is where we are, or this is where we start out, or whether that's just trailer trickery. She has got actually a lot of the same kind of facial characteristics as Varn. It just from that angle, if you look at her, she looks very Varn-like. And then she turns her head and it's fine. See, this is our Dark Knight. Clearly, he's got the red and the black. The question of which of these kingdoms he comes from is another matter entirely. I really like the armor design. It's quite understated. It looks more functional than the over-the-top things that you might get in other games. As the fringes fade, the people flock to the mother crystals. So it sounds like each of these nations is growing as the blight kind of eats away at the edges of the world, and the power of the mother crystals recedes, essentially. This looks like he's underwater. Because that's a ship and this is seaweed, isn't it? So yeah, I think this is the kind of parted waves above us. I actually hadn't noticed that previously, but you can tell there. That's a bit of a flat texture. From a single spark. So this is where Phoenix appears. So this is this guy here gets killed because of him. So it's the very fact that he has to turn around to stop him charging forwards that takes his eye off the ball and gets him sliced up. There we go. So it's the kid's fault. We don't necessarily know exactly what's happened before that. Well, at least I don't. The Imperial Army will march upon Rosaria. I mean, that's horrible. That's really dark. From the slaughter shall a new shadow rise. I mean, this looks an awful lot, just from this shot, like Meteor from Final Fantasy XIV, without the stubble. Again, nice texture work on this. I assume this is all in-game, or no, in-engine cutscening. But this is the kind of spark of New War. And we get Ifrit to fall upon the dominants, painting their destinies black as night. So the dominants are the people that are controlled by, /control, but I suspect controlled by the icons. painting their destinies black as night. Yeah, that's a little bit of a kind of cliche phrase, but in terms of trailer, getting across your ideas succinctly, can't go wrong with a little bit of cliche. The implication is, again, painting their destinies black. It's that this isn't a good thing. You know, being a dominant, being able to take on the power of these icons is... It may have granted them strength in the past, but... Or maybe they couldn't do it before. Again, I don't know. But the fact that they have now got these powers means that they're going to have kind of a dark fate. The freak looks really cool. That's nasty. Yeah, I love the fact that they all run. Our ability to summon beasts of great might should command respect, but instead has left us outcasts. This is the guy from the start, isn't it? From the party at the start, the roguish guy. So he's the avatar of Ramu. That's really cool. This is Titan. So the wise but buff guy. And yeah, it became their puppets. This is Garuda, isn't it? She looks like she's from the Holy Kingdom. This is interesting, though. I noted this. This is... It looks like they're calcifying. So the kind of warmth of blood and flesh is being drained away. And maybe they're being turned into crystal or something along those lines. But that's not shiny enough to be crystal. It just looks like they're being sucked dry of life. Yeah. What makes them think they have the right to use us, to leave us to die when our bodies are spent? And yeah, this is what happens. So they have the right to use us. I assume it's talking about the icons. And then, you know, once they can't handle it anymore, once there's no life left. See, that looks a little bit crystalline. They just leave them to die and move on to the next person that can be of use to them. Almost parasitic. You know, it strikes me that the summons, the icons, are being painted as not villains, but an almost antagonistic force. Clearly, being used this way is not pleasant. Yeah, I thought this was an interesting one. This is kind of very sci-fi-esque, isn't it? You know, neurons firing and, you know, going inside bodies. So it's interesting that we have a shot like this in a fantasy game. There's our first proper look at Garuda's incarnation. Again, we've got the statue in the background, which makes me think that this is going to be in the kind of holy area. So wind and ice, maybe. I don't know. I do like the kind of really, not neon, but kind of almost LED lighting, RGB style effects, and the shimmering on this. I think it's just on the inside, isn't it? Of this kind of skirt is very nicely done. And there we get a look at Shiva as well, or again, some kind of incarnation of Shiva. Is it the same person? I almost feel like it's the same person, and she has the power of both Shiva and Garuda. I'm assuming it's Shiva and Garuda. They might have chosen different ones. But yeah, this is the only little bit of kind of combat. Benedicta is her name. Yeah, so clearly from the kind of religious place. Up in the top left-hand corner, I'm assuming we have the ability to swap between the different icons that we've got. So that would be Phoenix and Shiva and it looks like Odin or some kind of dark knight. We've got, oh, you can't see it because I'm in the way. If I very quickly go boop, potion, high potion, strength, tonic. So we've got our quick use consumables. And in the bottom right hand corner, we've got a couple of interesting things. I've just remembered I can point to these using the mouse. So these are, I'm assuming, going to be mapped to face buttons, but we've also got like button press type things here. Precision dodge, a very kind of Final Fantasy 13-esque font, and again up here actually 13 and 14 they use, I can't remember the name of the font. They've Square Enix has licensed a particular font pack, an expensive one at that, because it's nice and clear. Interestingly enough, though, Aroga or Eriga, however you want to pronounce it, different font, which is interesting. Nice clean font down here, nice clean font up there, slightly more fantasy-esque font, but this looks like very much a dual. And there we've got Odin. So we've got Shiva powers for Cold Snap and Blizzard. And then we've got Phoenix, and that might be Titan? Possibly? But yeah, this is definitely Odin. In fact, it says up in the top right-hand corner. I hadn't even looked up there. So I was just guessing that it was Odin based on the look. But the actual icons, the icons for the icons are really nice. I like them a lot. Level 37, so this is a fair chunk of the way into the game, I would guess. And here we get full-on Garuda. Full-on Ifrit. Because they're huge. We get to fight Titan. Yeah, that is Titan. And we're fighting Titan as Ifrit. So there's a load of buffs up there as well. The implication is that we actually get to kind of manifest these things, or maybe we just get Titan on Titan combat, icon on icon combat rather. That was a tiny snippet there of Bahamut's. Yeah, icon of fire. Phoenix versus the icon of fire. Interesting that it doesn't call it a Ifrit. Maybe it isn't named at this point. I want to say, oh, now it's a Ifrit. Yeah, and we don't get to properly see Bahamut. We see the effect of it. This is the woman that's been chained up. This is the Dark Knight guy. I mean, that's Odin's sword, right? That's Zansetsuken. It's got that shape to it. So he is the kind of dominant, one would imagine, of Odin. There's a lot of shouting at each other. Little montage of characters. Rise, ye tarnished. So these are all the icons, aren't they? Or some of them. So we've got Shiva in the middle with a nice spear. We've got Titan. We've got Odin. We've got... I'm assuming that's Garuda. I don't... Is that Ramu? That's probably Ramu. That's Bahamut. That's Leviathan, who we haven't really seen anything of. Don't know who that is. And yeah, then we get this Phoenix versus Ifrit logo. And the book closes. A very interesting trailer, which I've somehow managed to talk about for 35 minutes. How do I do this? Well, I do this because I talk a lot. As I say, chances are a lot of the speculation that I've espoused in this video, chances are a lot of it is already known and answered. Because it tends to be, as I said, I don't follow games very closely. I like to get my teeth into them when they're released. But over the last few days, as I've been scrolling through various YouTube things, because obviously I'm on YouTube a lot for the channel, I've seen a lot of thumbnails saying, oh, you know, the Ambition trailer that's how you do a story trailer. It's one of the best Final Fantasy trailers that we've seen. It's like, nah, I probably should watch it then, shouldn't I? Probably should. And I have. And it was excellent. So, yay. Bit of excellence. It's got me hyped. I mean, I was already hyped for Final Fantasy XVI because it's the Final Fantasy XIV team that's been, or some of the Final Fantasy XIV team that's been working on it. You know, I always expected it to be good. I mean, I liked Final Fantasy XV. I know a lot of people didn't, and it's got its issues, but all Final Fantasy games have got their issues. You know, 14's got loads of them, 12's got some of them, 10's got some of them, 6, which is widely regarded as one of the best pixel art games, has got loads of them. Let's not talk about 2 and 5. And 1, to be fair. They've all got their issues. They're all iterative. I mean, this idea that a lot of people have got that Final Fantasy VII was the last good one, or that Final Fantasy X was the last good one. It's like, well, if you thought 7 was the last good one, you clearly haven't played 14, for a start. Everybody has got their own ideas about what the best Final Fantasy games are and what makes a good Final Fantasy game. And the fact that there is so many differences of opinion on that is what makes this series such an interesting and joyful thing to follow and talk about. It will be interesting to see whether 16 can trump 14's story for me, the Zodiac arc at least, of 14's story. Because of course that had the benefits of hundreds of hours, literally hundreds of hours worth of story building over many, many years. Whereas 16 is going to have, what, 30 to 40 hours probably of story plus all the other bits and pieces. Maybe up to 60, depending on how big they make it. I don't know what they're going for again. It'll be interesting to see whether they can capture some of that kind of really tight writing that many people would argue wasn't present in 15. 16 certainly doesn't seem to have had any issues with development hell. Or at least not as many issues. I don't know much about the behind the scenes, but 15 went through a lot of shit to get from its Versus 13 first announcement to what we actually got in terms of 15. And with the Royal Edition and the book that they released, which I still haven't read all of, with the perfect ending, there was a lot that should have been in 15 that wasn't. Stuff with Luna especially. It was an absolute travesty what they did with her character, or what they didn't do to round out her character. It's a shame because I think she was very much one of the most interesting characters in that story, or should have been, and they just didn't have the time and the budget to do it. This is, that's development hell for you. Fingers crossed that 16 is a complete package. And with Yoshi P in charge, I suspect it will be. Thank you very much for watching, folks. Let me know what you thought of this reaction in the comments below. I'm torn on is the answers, or are the answers to some of my speculations known? Again, I kind of don't want to know. But yeah, sound off in the comments anyway with your thoughts on Final Fantasy XVI. Do you think it looks good? I think from this is a really good hyping. That's not a word. Hype-upping, still not a word. Story trailer. Let me know what you think down below. Have yourselves a good day, folks. Stay safe out there and cheerio. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, why not click the like button and consider subscribing. Remember, you can ring the bell notification icon to get notified when new videos go live. And until next time, cheerio.